සුපිරි එලියා වෙළඳපොලේ අඩුම මිලකට රුපියල් 160යි.
Tonight, the PTA also taken up in Parliament.
We must decide whether we want to make it a political issue or whether we want to end this from here.
Matters of the people. The Cabinet decides to import 100,000 metric tons of rice to counter the alleged rice mafia, whilst deciding to keep LP gas prices the same. Backsliding. Gynecologists and obstetricians unhappy with vaccine rollout to expectant mothers. Sink or float. The SJB's no confidence motion against the Minister of Energy handed over to the Speaker. All that and much more coming up on First at 9. This Tuesday, the 22nd of June, 2021.
ඒ කියන්නේ ලයිෆ්බොයි අවස්ථා 10කදී ලෙඩ රෝග 10කට හේතු වන වෛරස් ඇතුළු විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරනවා කියලා.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Kanaka. Now, in matters concerning Parliament, the long vacated seat of the United National Party will be filled tomorrow with former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe taking oath. Meanwhile, a supplementary estimate for 200 billion rupees was tabled in Parliament by Chief Government Whip Minister Johnston Fernando today to be utilised for matters concerning the country's COVID response. What's more, the Prevention of Terrorism Act also took the attention of the House, with the Justice Minister voicing intentions to make changes to the Act, but not according to the whims and fancies of the international community.
විශාල තරුණ පිරිසක් ඉන්නවා ගරු කතානායකතුමනි යම් යම් ප්‍රමාද වීම නිසා අප ලබා ගැනීමට නොහැකි වූත් තමන්ගේ නඩු කටයුතු අවසන් කර ගැනීමට නොහැකි වූ අය. ඉතින් ඒ අතර වසර ගණනාවක් LTT ත්‍රස්තවාදී සැකපිට විශාල පිරිසක් රක්ෂිත බන්ධනාගාරයකටද ඉන්නවා. එක්කෝ මේ අයට සාධාරණ එක නඩුව අහන්න ඕනේ. නඩුව අහලා දඬුවම් දෙන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් අධිචෝදනා දාන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ආණ්ඩුවේ 12000කට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක් අපි පුනරුත්ථාපනය කළ සමාජගත කරා. ඒ අතර 3500ක් අපි සිවිල් ආරක්ෂක බලකායට රැකියාව දුන්නා.
මේ ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ වැළැක්වීමේ පනත පාවිච්චි කරමින් විශාල අසාධාරණ රාශියක් සිදු වෙනවා. දේශපාලඥයන් දඩයන් කරන එක පැත්තක හෙජාස් හිස්බුල්ලා වැනි අය දැන් දීර්ඝ කාලයක් තිස්සේ අපත් නැතුව දැන් නඩු පවරලා තියෙනවා. ඒකේ සාක්ෂි ගොතලා තියෙනවා. මෙහෙම තියේදී ඊයේ ජෙනීවාවේදී මානව අයිතිවාසිකම් පිළිබඳ කුමසාස්වරිය දැන් මේ ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ වැළැක්වීම පනත අවබෝධ කිරීම පිළිබඳව විශාල චෝදනා රාශියක් කරනවා. දැන් ඒකෙන් අපිට දැන් GSP සාහනයක් නැතිවීමේ අවදානමක් ඇති වෙලා තිබෙනවා.
විපක්ෂයේ නියෝජනය කරමින් කියන්නේ හැම වෙලේම පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයට සම්බන්ධ අයට විරුද්ධව මේ රජය කටයුතු කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. හිජාස් හිස්බුල්ලාට විරුද්ධව කටයුතු කරලා තියෙනවා. වැරද්දක් කරලා ඉවරලා ගිහිල්ලා නඩු දාපුවාම කියන්නේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී පනත පෙන්නලා නඩු දානවා කියලා. කාඩිනල් හිමිපාට තව එකක් කියනවා. මම අහනවා සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස මහත්තයාගෙන් ඔබතුමාලා එකඟ වෙනවද මේ රවුෆ් හකීම් මැතිතුමා කරපු ප්‍රකාශය සම්බන්ධව? ත්‍රස්තවාදී වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී හිටිනවා අද විපක්ෂය.
දැන් කතා කරන්නේ මේ අහිංසක මේ නීතිඥ මහත්මයෙක් නීතිපති දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ හිටපු නිලධාරි මහත්මයෙක්. පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයේ දඩවිමා කරගෙන ගෙනියන මේ ව්‍යාපාරයේ හිටපු නීතිපතිතුමා කියලා තියෙන මේ පස්සේ විශාල කුමන්ත්‍රණයක් තියෙන බව.
නාමල් රාජපක්ෂ ගරු අමාත්‍යතුමා විසින් මැනගත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් මතු කරා. ඒ තමයි මේ නඩුව ඉතා ඉක්මනින් අහලා ඉවර කරන්න. අපි ඒකට වැඩපිළිවෙලක් කරගෙන යනවා. කරු නීතිපතිතුමාත් එක්ක මම සාකච්ඡා කරා. අතිගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා, කරු අගමැතිතුමා තවදුරටත් කතා කරා. GSP සහන හින්දා නෙවෙයි. මේ රටේ කාලයක් එක්ක නීතිය ප්‍රගමනය වෙන්න ඕන. දැන් ඊයේ කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ අපි තීරණයක් ගත්තා. රාෂ්ට්‍රවාදයේ වැළැක්වීමේ පනතේ යම් වෙනස්කම් විය යුතුයි කියන්නේ. ඒ පිළිබඳ අධ්‍යයනය කිරීම සඳහා අපි එපාද ඒක කරන්න එපාද? ඒ කරන්න එපාද? කරන්න කියලා අහනවා. කරන්න හදනකොට ඉන්නේ. රටට සුදුසු විදියට ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට හානියක් නොවන ආකාරයට මානව හිමිකම් සනාථ වන ආකාරයට ජාත්‍යන්තර ප්‍රජාවට අවශ්‍ය වෙන විදියට නෙවෙයි. ඒක වෙනස් කරලා
ඉස්සත් වෙන්න මම තුමාලා
ස්ථාපිත කරන
වැදගත් උත්තරයක් දෙන්න.
වගකීමෙන් ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
There is a systemic problem here, Honourable Speaker. Tamil political prisoners is not a issue that a government should be allowed to decide on whims and fancies. Today, in the background of Geneva session, summer session starting yesterday, and with the GSP Plus under question, a government minister or any responsible subject minister should not be allowed to stand up and say that whether these prisoners should be allowed to be freed or not. The systemic problem here is the PTA. It is the PTA that allows room for arbitrary decisions to take place. Unless you repeal the PTA and unless you make sure that you do not bring any other law that even resembles the PTA, this systematic arbitrary action will continue and injustice will continue. Today it's not only the PTA. Today, in order for the government to try and keep the GSP Plus under the Mahinda Rajapaksa regime, this government brought the ICCPR Act. The ICCPR Act today is being used for the complete opposite purpose, to victimize people who are innocent just because they are opposed to the government. The minister stands up and makes those very same comments that we have been saying for quite some time is welcome, but when we said it, we were told that everybody are Kotias. What we are asking is that the government identifies the actual problem, which is the PTA, and make sure that no such law similar to the PTA is brought into law.
Honorable Speaker, we must decide what we want to do. Whether we want to make it a political issue and debate in Parliament, or whether we want to end this from here. Every time you speak in Parliament, make it political, but no government want to give answer, Honorable Speaker. But we are willing to take it on a serious note to find a solution. ඔබතුමා මේ කරන වැඩෙන් වෙන්නේ මොකක්ද දන්නවද? මේ කරන් යන වැඩපිළිවෙල සම්පූර්ණයෙන් කඩාකප්පල් කරන එක. අපිට තේරෙනවා මේ වැඩපිළිවෙලත් දෙක්ක ඔබතුමාලාගේ දේශපාලනය අවසන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Even your government, you formed the last government, but they did not care about them. They did not take a decision on them. So now we are trying to do something for the people. Let's do politics when the election comes. But for now, let's get together and find a solution.
මේ වසංගතය සේවකයන්ට වගේම හිමිකරුවන්ටත් ලොකු අභියෝගයක්. ආරක්ෂිත සහ විවෘත සේවා ස්ථානයක් සඳහා එකිනෙකාට සහාය වෙමු.
The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to hold the LP gas prices at its current level, disregarding continuous calls from LITRO gas and LAUGFS gas to hike the prices. But the ministerial subcommittee appointed to look into reforming the LPG industry has put forth several recommendations pertaining to the two entities, for which the Cabinet has also given the nod. Now, it was also announced today during the Cabinet media briefing that rice will be imported to counter the rocketing prices in the local market.
විශේෂයෙන්ම වෙළඳපොලේ ඇති වෙලා තියෙන සහල් මිල සම්බන්ධව අවධානය යොමු කරා. මේක අපි කැමැත්තෙන්ම කරන්න යන දෙයක් නෙමෙයි. නමුත් ජනතාවට තියෙන පීඩනය අඩු කිරීමට එක ක්‍රමවේදයක් හැටියට අපි කල්පනා කරා හාල් මෙට්‍රික් ටොන් ලක්ෂයක් ආනයන කිරීම. ඒ ආනයන කිරීමේදී ක්‍රම කිහිපයක් සම්බන්ධව සැලකිල්ලට ලක් කරලා තියෙනවා. එකක් තමයි රජයෙන් රජයට එහෙම නැත්නම් G2G කියනවා ගෙන්න ගන්න පිළිවෙලක් තිබෙනවද කියලා බලනවා. එසේ නැත්නම් අනිකුත් ක්‍රමවලට යන්නට තීන්දුව කරලා තියෙනවා. කෙසේ වෙතත් හැකියක්මනින් වෙළඳපොළට සම්බා මෙට්‍රික් ටන් ලක්ෂයක් ගෙන එහෙම වැඩපිළිවෙලට අවතීර්ණ වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Meanwhile, the cabinet spokesperson was quizzed on the comments made by Vice Chief of the Naval Staff of the Indian Navy last week. Vice Admiral G. Ashok Kumar said on Saturday that China's involvement in Sri Lanka's Port City project could pose a threat to Indian interests in the region, and there is a need to keep a close watch on such activities. He added that drones purchased from the US are keeping surveillance on all vessels in the region, despite their nationality. On those comments, Minister Rambukwala had this to say.
අපි උපකල්පනයන් කරන්නේ මෙහෙම අර ඇමරිකාවේ මේ දේවල් අරන් තියෙන නිසා එවැනි දේවල් කියලා. හැබැයි අපි බැහැර කරන්නේ නැහැ භූදේශපාලනයේ යම් යම් සිදුවීම් සිදු වෙනවා. ඒ සිදුවීම් සම්බන්ධව සැකසහිත ස්ථාන අනන්තවත් ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. හැබැයි රජයක් හැටියට අපිට තියෙන්නේ එවැනි දේවල් වෙන්නේ නැහැයි කියන පදනමේ ඉන්න නෙමෙයි. එවැනි දේවල් වුණොත් ගත යුතු ක්‍රියාමාර්ග සම්බන්ධව අදහසක් සහ වැඩපිළිවෙලක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීම. ඒ නිසා මේ වෙනකොට ඒ සම්බන්ධව විදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍යාංශ අවශ්‍ය ප්‍රමාණයට මැදිහත් වෙලා තියෙන
Meanwhile, the cabinet has approved the restructuring of the liquefied petroleum gas industry of Sri Lanka. It has approved implementation of the recommendations submitted by the relevant ministerial subcommittee headed by the Minister of Trade. The ministerial subcommittee recommends that LITRO Gas Company and LAUGFS Gas Company continue to sell a 12.5 kg domestic gas cylinder at 1,493 rupees as currently prescribed by the Consumer Affairs Authority. Purchasing, transporting and storing gas associatively by both companies and using the Hambantota gas terminal for this purpose is also approved. The appointment of a committee consisting of experts in the relevant fields, including representatives of LITRO gas company and LAUGFS gas company, to carry out the procurement affairs, transportation and storage affairs related to the purchase of the required LP gas for the country are other recommendations approved by the Cabinet. The implementation of the recommended methodology by the subcommittee within the next 6 months and taking appropriate steps based on its progress is also given the nod. The Cabinet of Ministers has also given the green light to establish a board of consultants comprised of experts from commerce boards, associations, universities and research institutes applicable to 20 major industrial sectors until the Industries Promotion Act No. 46 of 1990 is amended, adding provisions to cater contemporary requirements of the industrial sector. Meanwhile, the go-ahead has been given to revise the Consumer Affairs Authority Act No. 9 of 2003. Though the approval was granted in October 2018 to draft a bill to amend the Act, the Attorney General has pointed out the need to further formalise the bill prepared accordingly, while the Ministry of Trade has identified further provisions to be included in the said bill to meet present requirements. Introduction of new acts to replace the Fertilizer Act No. 68 of 1988 by incorporating provisions to suit the present need was approved by the Cabinet. In particular, since the necessary steps have been taken under Vistas of Prosperity and Splendour, the national policy framework, to implement the use of organic fertilizer totally in the country, the need to include relevant provisions in the Act has been identified. The declaration of the National Energy Day has also received the green light, along with a national program which includes various activities to enhance the knowledge, attitudes and creativity of school children on sustainable energy. Taking into consideration that the 26th of June in 1882 as the day Sri Lankans first saw the light emitted by an electric torch when the German ship SS Helios arrived at the Colombo port, the National Energy Day will be fixed on the 26th of June each year.
Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena has had a telephone conversation with his Indian counterpart Dr. Subramaniam Jayashankar yesterday. Minister Gunawardena has said that steps taken by both countries so far to enhance bilateral relations between them have been fruitful. The Foreign Minister said that he also thanked the Indian External Affairs Minister for the financial assistance and COVID relief support extended by the Government of India to combat the pandemic. During the conversation, the two ministers had agreed to work in collaboration with the regional organizations such as BIMSTEC and IORA. Plans were also exchanged to continue cooperation, especially through common platforms like Colombo Plan and Commonwealth. The Foreign Minister added that a number of important matters of mutual interest for both countries were also discussed during the conversation, which lasted for almost half an hour. We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the Sri Lanka College of Gynecologists and Obstetricians says that if the vaccination drive was implemented properly on expectant mothers, all intended recipients should be vaccinated by the 14th of August. Addressing a media briefing today, they expressed displeasure over the rollout of vaccine on expectant mothers, holding officials responsible for the failings.
A COVID-19 patient who was suspected to be infected with the Delta variant was detected from the area of Madivela in Kotte yesterday. Further, it was also confirmed that his mother had also been admitted to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases following COVID-19 infection. As a result of this detection, a part of the Pragatipura road in the area was isolated as a control measure. However, speaking at a media briefing this morning, the medical experts once again said that it is too early to confirm that the patient has been infected with the feared Delta variant, and investigations into the matter is continuing.
මේක සත්‍යයක් හැටියට මට මේ මොහොතේ කියන්න බෑ. සාමාන්‍ය PCR පරීක්ෂණ කරන ක්‍රියාවලියේදී අසාමාන්‍ය තොරතුරු එහෙමත් නැත්නම් ප්‍රතිඵල ලැබෙන එහෙමත් නැත්නම් ඒ PCR පරීක්ෂණයේදී හොයාගන්නා දානවල තිබෙනා වූ යම්කිසි අක්‍රමිකතාවයක් වෙනසක් හඳුනාගත් වහාම ඒ රසායනාගාර විසින් ඒ ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ ඒ අදාළ අයට දැනුම් දෙනවා. ඒ අනුව තමයි මේ කියන පුද්ගලයාගේ පදිංචි ප්‍රදේශයේ හැටියට හඳුනාගත්ත මේ ප්‍රදේශයට අවශ්‍ය කරන පාලන ක්‍රියාමාර්ග අරගෙන තියෙන්නේ. මේ පාලන ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගැනීම අර සැක කටයුතු අවස්ථාවෙම අපි ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. මේක ඒ ආකාරයටම දෙමටකොඩ ප්‍රදේශයේත් ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණා.
Meanwhile, the number of COVID-19 infections detected from the island yesterday stood at 2,131. Out of that figure, 2,098 came from all districts of the island, while the remaining 33 are foreign arrivals. The highest number of infections came from the Gampaha district with 271. In addition, 229 infections were detected from Colombo, 208 from Ratnapura, 177 from Batticaloa, 144 from Polonnaruwa, 140 from Kalutara and 118 from Putlam. Further, 103 cases came from Kandy, 102 from Kegol, 94 from Gaul, 79 each from Kurunegala and Norelia, as well as 75 from Jaffna. The remaining 279 infections were found from 12 other districts.
අපි දන්නවා අපි එක කාලයක හිටියේ දවසකට ලංකාවේ එකම රෝගියෙක්වත් වාර්තා නොවුණේ. ඒ රෝගීන් හමුණු සියලුම රෝගීන් නිරෝධායන මධ්‍යස්ථාන වලින් හමුණු රෝගීන් පමණයි. ඊට පස්සේ 10 15 හම්බෙන පුංචි පොකුරු තිබුණා. අද වෙනකොට අපි හිටපු තැනට සාපේක්ෂව අද ඊටාත්ම තවමත් ඉන්නේ දරුණු තත්ත්වයක. ඒක අපි පිළිගන්න ඕන. ඉතින් ඒ තත්ත්වය නැවත යහපත් තත්ත්වයට එන්න නම් මේ අපේ සංචාරණ සීමාවන් එකට පොදු ගැසීම් එකතු වීම අවම කිරීම ඉතාම වැදගත් වෙනවා. එහෙම නොවුනොත් අපිට නැවතත් අපිට ඊළඟ පෙරතිබිච්ච මට්ටමට යනවා මිසක් මං හිතන්නේ අපිට ඉදිරියට යන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා.
In the meantime, Minister of Wildlife and Forest Conservation C.B. Ratnayaka confirmed today that the lion at the National Zoological Garden in Dehiwala, which tested positive for COVID-19, has recovered from the virus. He also said that special medicine imported from India is given to 200 animals at the zoo, including the lion. On the vaccination front, as of last evening, 925,242 people have received the first dose of Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. Out of that figure, 372,290 people have been vaccinated completely against COVID-19 with both doses of AstraZeneca. Meanwhile, 1,443,470 persons are given the first dose of the Sinopharm vaccine, while 455,592 of them are completely immunized with both the shots by last evening. As for the Sputnik vaccine, 113,454 persons have received the first dose, while 14,301 have received both doses by last evening. According to these figures of the epidemiology unit, 842,183 people in the island are completely immunized against COVID-19. In the meantime, State Minister of Production, Supply and Regulation of Pharmaceuticals, Professor Channa Jayasumana, confirmed today that 2 million more doses of the Sinopharm vaccines purchased by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation will arrive in Sri Lanka in the first week of July. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka College of Gynecologists and Obstetricians is unhappy with vaccine rollout for expectant mothers. They say that the program's implementation has not met the expected efficiency.
හඳුනා ගැනීම දැන් ඉවර වෙලා තියෙන්න ඕන. අද ඇවිල්ලා ජූනි මාසේ 22 වෙනිදා. උපරිම මේ මාසේ අග වෙනකොට සෞඛ්‍ය සේවා අධ්‍යක්ෂක ජෙනරාල් වරයාගේ නිර්දේශ මත ලංකාව පුරාම සුදුසුකම් ලබන සියලු මව්වරු එන්නත් කරණය පටන්ගෙන තිබිය යුතුයි. එයින් සති 4කින් එම සියලු මව්වරුන් නැවත ඔවුන්ගේ දෙවෙනි එන්නත ලබාගත යුතුයි. අගෝස්තු මාසේ 14 වෙනිදායින් පසු ආරක්ෂාව නොලබපු කිසිදු මව් කෙනෙක් ලංකාවේ ඉන්න බෑ. එදායින් පසු එන්නත ඉල්ලා සිටිද්දිත් ලැබිච්ච නැති මවකට කොවිඩ් ආසාදනය නිසා ප්‍රබල අපහසුවකට පත් වුණොත් අපේ විද්‍යායතනය දැනුවත් කරන්න අපි එම මවට අවශ්‍ය සියලුම ක්‍රියාමාර්ගවලට සක්‍රියව දායකයි. අපේ ආණ්ඩුව ඒකට සියලුම දේවල් සලසලා තියෙනවා. මේක ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණේ නැත්නම් ක්‍රියාත්මක නොවීම නිසා වෙන සියලුම ප්‍රශ්නවලට වගකීමක් ක්‍රියාත්මක කිරීමට යොදවලා තියෙන නිලධාරීන් ලබා ගත යුතුයි.
Meanwhile, 2,071 new cases of the novel coronavirus have been confirmed from the island so far, taking the number of active cases in the island to 32,014. There were also 2,009 recoveries confirmed today, taking the overall tally to 209,296.
The police, meanwhile, continue to urge people not to cross provincial borders during the time when the travel restrictions are relaxed. There is, however, a chance for people with humanitarian concerns to do so, along with essential service providers.
The island-wide travel restrictions were relaxed yesterday, allowing free movement to the public, however with certain limitations. The restrictions, however, will once more become effective from 10 p.m. tomorrow. Until such time, the public are advised to adhere to the revised guidelines issued by the Director General of Health. Similar calls were made by authorities when the restrictions were relaxed during the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. Since those calls fell on deaf ears, Sri Lanka is now suffering from the third wave of COVID-19, the worst to hit the island so far. Just as it was during then, people are callously disregarding health and safety guidelines. Face masks are either not worn properly or not worn at all. Social distancing is limited to a phrase. All this at a time when the deadly Delta variant is detected from the community. In the meantime, for a second day running, people using public transport were disgruntled as they claim that adequate services are not provided. They say that this situation forced the abandonment of safety protocols inside buses and trains. The police meanwhile continue to discourage people from attempting to cross provincial boundaries, which is not permitted despite travel restrictions being relaxed.
We are going to strictly implement the restriction order in respect of inter-provincial movements, and no one is allowed to cross provincial borders unless the employees of essential services. In addition to that, on humanitarian grounds, persons are allowed to go through the provincial borders, especially to attend funerals of their close relatives. The police have deployed mobile patrols, foot patrols and motorcycle patrols in order to monitor the situation. In addition to that, we have deployed police officers in uniform and in mufti as well in order to monitor the situation, and the police officers who are in mufti have been informed to gather information about illegal public gatherings.
Meanwhile, in a bid to curb the spread of the virus in certain localities of the country, the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 isolated the Sri Anandarama Road within the Grama Niladhari division of Serapura in the Kolonnava police area in the Colombo district. Further, the Kotavala Grama Niladhari division of the Godakavala police area in the Ratnapura district was also isolated at 6 a.m. today. In the meantime, the isolation imposed on the George Road in Karangapokuna Grama Niladhari division in Gampaha district was lifted at 6 this morning.
Now, in other local news, the no-confidence motion filed against Minister of Energy Uday Gammanpila by the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was handed over to the Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Abebewardena today. On the 16th, several SJB members of Parliament signed a 10-point motion of no confidence against Minister Gammanpila, citing the recent increase in fuel prices. It alleged that the Energy Minister had proceeded to increase the fuel prices without the approval of the Cabinet of Ministers and thereby violated a pledge under the Constitution. The motion also cites the recent statement issued by the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna regarding the fuel price hike, in which he criticised the Minister. We will see you on the other side of this break. Bear with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, headline inflation increased to 6.1% in last month from 5.5% in April. According to data released by the central bank, the jump was due to the monthly increases in prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Food inflation year-on-year increased to 10.3% in May 2021 from 9.7% in April, and non-food inflation increased to 2.5% in May from 2.2% in April. Meanwhile, the National Consumer Price Index, measured on an annual average basis, increased marginally to 5.4% in May from 5.3% in April. Monthly change of NCPI recorded at 0.95% in May due to increases observed in prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Accordingly, within the food category, increases were observed mainly in the prices of coconut oil, rice and fresh fish. Moreover, prices of items in the non-food category recorded an increase during the month due to the price increases observed in the health, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, and furnishing, household equipment and routine household maintenance subcategories. Further, year-on-year core inflation increased marginally to 4.2% in May 2021 from 4.1% in April 2021, while annual average core inflation remained unchanged at 4.4% in May. In the meantime, taking a look at the Colombo Bourse, the all-share price index gained 16.98 points to end at 7,743.71, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 3,026.08, following a loss of 38.37 points. Market turnover was at 1.9 billion rupees. Now here's Dimantha Mathi with a brief report on today's market performance.
Today we saw a lot of volatility in the index, with some of the retailers having a diverse mindset. The index was up by 17 points, mainly because of some of the selected oil palm companies, which are also illiquid, have significantly gained in the market. If you take the S&P SL 20 index, is also down compared to the benchmark index being in the green territory. If you take the turnover levels, turnover was slightly short of 2 billion rupees, but retail activity was quite high today, about 24,000 transactions compared to yesterday's below 20,000 transactions. So with that, what we can see is a lot of retail activity in the market, mostly onto the selling side and primarily concentrating on the capital goods sector, transportation sector and also the material sector. Some of the three key sectors that there was heavy activity over the past couple of weeks.
In the meantime, the rupee closed at 202.88 cents against the US dollar once again after closing at the same level yesterday. Let's now take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.